Have you ever fallen in love with a house and then only to later find out it's part of an HOA and you're not sure if this is going to be a nightmare or a dream home? Well, in this video, Tucker and I are going to talk about HOA life and the pros and cons so you know exactly what to expect.
Clay, I hate HOAs, and I'm about to tell you every reason why I don't like them.
All right, Tucker, let's start positive. What are some of the pros of an HOA?
Sure, Clay. One of the first things it does is it really provides a level of uniformity and protection for a community. So everything looks nice. Your neighbor's house isn't purple. There's not a boat and a camper out front with a four-wheeler. So there are some benefits to having an HOA.
That's exactly it. And what it can do is it can provide a uniform feel of a neighborhood. So I think in some cases, HOAs can be really good, Tucker. You know, it's pros and cons, but man, it does make aesthetically a neighborhood feel better typically when there's an HOA because there's some order to it, correct?
Well, absolutely. And what they're trying to do is protect home values, which is what they're trying to do. But with an HOA, there's some give and take right there. You know, one of the things they're trying to do is provide that higher value. But at the same time, they need to use those funds correctly. And that's another piece to the puzzle, which is HOA prices.
100% true. And I think one of the best parts about an HOA is that it can often come with amenities that you wouldn't have otherwise. So neighborhood pool, pickleball courts, clubhouse, things like that a homeowner is not going to be able to afford on their own property. But if you're part of an HOA, you may get the benefit of those things.
Sure. And there's two things I want to cover. If you want to talk about the best HOA, in my humble opinion, it's got to be West Haven. Part of cables brought in where you're part of the condos or some of those ones up front, their landscaping budget is bigger than some small countries. I'm going to let you know, but it's gorgeous when you go all the way through there. They do a fantastic job.
Yeah. I mean, West Haven is an example of probably one of the best HOAs in Middle Tennessee. And it's probably just because their amenity package is so large, but not every neighborhood has the amount of amenities they have. So that's an HOA that's done well. Tucker, there are other neighborhoods that are not done as well, correct?
Yes. And you can kind of tell pretty quickly. You pull into an HOA development and you realize some of the siding doesn't look good. You see wood rot, you see patchy roofs, and that's where you start getting into some dangers. You go, okay, it looks like this isn't as well run of an HOA. But one of the benefits you do see that I totally forgot to share is if you're a first-time home buyer and you've got an HOA community that's covering the roof and the exterior, that really protects you from how much out-of-pocket expenses you're going to have.
Shared services like trash pickup, landscaping, uniformity, other, like some neighborhoods are going to have internet included on there. Some are going to have some condos and HOAs, their HOA fee includes electricity or gas bills, water bills. So there's a variety of shared services. That's the main point of an HOA is shared services, at least, from that aspect, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And the whole purpose of this conversation really starts with when we have people that are looking to relocate here from a coastal city or somewhere out west. You say HOA and they act like they've been completely traumatized by a situation. And I want to share that not all HOAs here in the Nashville community run like other states.
Tucker, on the flip side, what's the first downside of an HOA that comes to mind?
When we talk to people that are moving from out of state, whether it's out west or a coastal city, people look like they've been very traumatized with some type of HOA situation. Middle Tennessee HOAs are not quite as aggressive as other states. You do hear the stories of the grass was too high or there's chalk on the sidewalk. And I'm sure that there are random situations where that has possibly taken place here. But I think the biggest thing that you're going to be dealing with here is like an architectural review committee who wants to approve any type of designs that you're going to have on the outside.
Yeah. And that typically, again, I think that's in the category of good for the homeowners because it protects the aesthetic. That's a good part of an HOA is those art committees. On the negative side, you have to talk about, you don't have control over the HOA fee. The HOA fee is not dictated by one person. So it can go way up and you can't do anything about it. There can be a special assessment and you got to pay it. You don't have a choice. So it takes away some choice if you're part of that HOA,
So Clay, let me tell you my assessment story. One of my HOAs where I have a rental property, they did a special assessment to redo everybody's fence outside. And so everyone had to vote and it cost quite a bit of money. You almost felt like you're paying for everyone else's fence as well. And then a year later, we really had to increase our HOA fees just to cover all the new expenses that you're really seeing these days. The craziest thing that we noticed was over half of our HOA fee was going to just insurance policies.
Man, that's nuts. And insurance prices have gone up. So yeah, if your HOA covers insurance, then that's one reason the monthly fees can go up out of your control. I think property owners in general are facing this insurance increase. It's kind of painful right now, Tucker.
Well, it is. And then you start getting into insurance, which you do appreciate. And again, I go back to a first-time home buyer. All of a sudden, if you have studs in insurance, your insurance for the year is a whole lot less because most of it's being paid through the HOA.
Yeah, you're paying for it one place or another. So something else we got to talk about that I think HOAs that comes up is rental restrictions. You know, when you're part of an HOA, there's a whole special set of rules you get to adhere to if you're going to live or own a property in that community. And one of them can be the Homeowners Association wants to restrict rental properties. They don't want the renters, or they want to limit the amount of renters. Or in some cases, we're seeing, Tucker and Franklin, neighborhoods that will only allow you to rent for like up to 2 or 3 years. And in order to rent, you have to have lived there for 2 years. So they don't want to attract all the investor buyers to come, which I can see both sides of it. Everybody will want to live next door to renters that turn over every year. Tucker, you and I as landlords both know tenants typically don't take as good a care of their home as property owners do. There's usually a difference. So I kind of get it, but it also creates a different market dynamic, you know, good or bad. What do you think?
Yes, a well-run HOA does a couple of things. It keeps property values high, and it keeps the type of homeowner that comes in and buys these to a higher level. And you can start seeing when the cars start looking ugly and the shrubbery looks bad, and you can start seeing all the deterioration. It just starts to snowball and becomes a bigger issue. But on the investor front, you know, one of the things we get is we get calls saying, "Hey, Tucker, we love WeHo. We want to be in this downtown urban area, which is growing really fast." And a lot of the condos down there, you can get a $700, $900 a month HOA fee because you've got elevators and you've got all this other stuff. There's still investment properties in WeHo where you don't have this huge HOA fee. And that's one of the things that we're looking at, making sure that it's a cash flow positive investment.
Yeah, and Tucker and you and I both know the older the condo building, typically the higher the HOA fee. Buyer beware. When a unit is 30, 40, 50 years old, there's more things that are getting replaced, like roofs on that building, repaving the entire parking lot. The pools sometimes have to be redone. There's just more maintenance on the older buildings. So for that reason, we tend to favor the newer buildings, just from the less things can go wrong typically when it's newer.
Yes, when you start seeing that wood siding, I mean, just the fun thing about when you see an older development, what do you see? Lots of green grass, a lot of open spaces, and then you also see a lot of wood siding or vinyl siding or a lot of cheaper construction materials. And you know that there's just going to be higher costs involved. And we really just try to stay away from that because we're trying to avoid those surprises that are coming up.
Man, that's a great point. Four Seasons in Green Hills, that condo development. This is a great point because the newer condo buildings and townhome buildings, there's been advances in technology in the last 30, 40 years. Hardy board siding wasn't around like 40 years ago. So those places where that T111 or that particle board that absorbs water maybe, or the siding that just is not as good as the concrete hardy board. And so that you see that entire development in Green Hills, entire thing got re-sided with updated materials. Well, you know what? That's great, except that everybody's HOA fee went up a couple $100, and it's never going back down once it goes up. It seems like it's just part of the deal with those older units. Great location, but that was one example where you saw the whole development got redone with a major assessment there.
100%. I'll share as an investor, if the HOA has a pool, I'm out. There's so many good investment properties around Nashville that's just parking lots, landscaping, trash pickup. Those are my favorite ones to look at.
Yeah, and that's a great point. And I think lastly on this note is that HOAs are run by neighbors. And so when it's run by neighbors, there may be disagreements over what's the best way to live, what's the best way for the place to look. There's power struggles, there's politics, there's all kinds of drama that can unfold when you're in an HOA that's run by neighbors. not everybody's made the same way. Everybody's a little different in their opinions of things. So it creates that environment that you and I both know can be very dramatic in a lot of cases.
100%. There's some people that just don't want higher HOA fees and they think they're saving a few bucks and it ends up costing them at the end. The other thing is when you look at 55 and up communities, you're going to notice that they're a lot more hands-on. You got a lot of people that don't go to work every day. So they're around town, around that community looking for not profit, but point stuff out. That's just the way it is. But they also do a lot more for those developments than a typical HOA.
Yeah, that's such a good point. How much free time do the neighbors have? That's a great question you want to ask yourself when you're jumping into an HOA community, for sure.
Clay, tell the viewers what we do as part of our due diligence when one of our buyers is buying a home in an HOA community.
Well, I think the main thing any buyer needs to do is just ask questions. Ask about the details of the HOA. What are the restrictions? What are the bylaws and the covenants that are kind of the extra set of rules that you have to follow as part of that HOA? And then the other questions you want to ask yourself as a buyer is like, how healthy is the HOA from a financial standpoint? And so what that means is you can oftentimes get a schedule or an active budget for the HOA and figure out how much do they have in reserves. Do they have any in reserves? Is there pending lawsuits that are like out there that could affect the HOA? But you want to see that you have a healthy financial statement on those HOAs and that they can cover upcoming expenses. Another way you can do that is ask for the recent minutes from the last few HOA meetings, so you can read what happened. What are they talking about? What's going on? That's all on the buyer side, that you can request those HOA documents as part of your diligence process. So we encourage that. And the other thing, Tucker, is there's usually an HOA transfer fee when you buy. Sometimes it's $100, sometimes it's $250. In neighborhoods like West Haven or some of the other higher end amenity rich communities, they may be as much as like a 1% fee that you have to pay gets put into the pot for the HOA when you buy, so it builds up those reserves. So the closing attorneys used to always call this the welcome to the neighborhood fee, but it's to fund those HOA projects. And so when you buy, sometimes there's an extra fee associated with that. So you want to ask those kind of questions whenever you're buying into a community that is part of an HOA.
Yeah, and you hit the hammer on the head when you talked about having some type of reserve, that 10% reserve. There are communities that we try to stay away from that are conventional or cash communities where you don't have that 10% reserve. And what that means is they don't have enough money to cover all the expenses. So they lose out on FHA loans. And so you're losing part of the community that can come in and buy in those developments. And we're just trying to protect our buyers from those types of situations.
Yeah, they want to look for the healthy HOA, and it kind of depends on who's running it and how well it's run and how well they plan in advance for maintenance. So all kinds of fun stuff in HOA life, Tucker.
Absolutely. That's why I like ours, Clay. It's voluntary.
Man, that's right. The best kind of HOA is the voluntary kind. It's a totally different vibe. And yeah, there's benefits to that for sure. So I think that kind of wraps us up. Again, my name's Clay, and Tucker and the team and I, we get contacted every day from people like you looking to make home in Tennessee. And we love it. We are real estate agents. And so we're day in, day out talking about like stuff like HOA life and property taxes and all the good stuff. So if you're interested in moving here, feel free to hit us up. And until next time, hope to show you around town.